People breathe polluted air every day. This is according to the World Health Organization. It's estimated that between 2030 and 2050, climate change will cause 250,000 deaths every single year. Climate and energy campaigner Bukelwa Nzimande from Greenpeace Africa joins us now from our Cape Town studio. Very good morning to you. The young activist is saying, Greta, that we should act as though our house is on fire. We're not doing that, are we?
Yeah, we're not acting as if our house is on fire. And like you're mentioning, the stats are increasingly scarier. And it's really, we're certain that the impacts are that Earth is going to face, that the people are going to face, are ones that would face when we're in crisis. So we are indeed in a climate crisis. It's an emergency. But our governments, our heads of states are not acting as we are. And it's so important, like you're saying, that the youth movement is rising up and saying that our house is on fire, act like it.
Yeah, tell us more about the youth movement, the sort of impact it can make. We've got Greta Thunberg. I mean, she's irritating everyone from Donald Trump, all of those who don't believe in climate change. What sort of impact can you and people like Greta have?
So, interestingly enough, you mentioned that she is stepping on big people's toes. And it's really just encouraging to see a new, unified, courageous youth voice rising up. It's a movement that is so fresh. A lot of activists like us who've been working in the space have not seen a movement that has resulted in influence in even the United Nations processes. So there's definitely right now momentum that is building, and to actually see the children, not that they think like children, rise up and speak to adults and basically push them to be responsible. There's definitely a need and a relevance, and the impacts that we're seeing just signifies how important for the movements to grow bigger and mobilize. So they are really mobilizing a different space that we haven't seen in the climate movement for the longest time, and they're speaking a language that adults know but are starting to understand. And I guess the youth voice is fresh. And it's really reaping a lot of results, and it's across not only Europe. We're seeing even pan-African movements in South Africa. We recently had a meeting, or a strategy meeting, with climate strikers on board the Arctic Sunrise, which is currently at the V&A waterfront, and just really hearing how passionate the young people are. And not only that, but because they are the ones who are going to be sitting with the consequences that we are not doing anything about, it's really quite moving and inspiring to me as an activist.
Yes, I was going to ask you about Arctic Sunrise. I mean, that's full of young people demanding that they be noticed and that we sit up and take action now. I mean, who's listening? What sort of response do you get to something like this?
The response is varied, but what I can say is, if we had to speak about the youth voice last year, for example, when you're looking at Fridays for Future and the climate strikes and how they started, I think nobody imagined that this year, during the week of the climate strikes, it would see millions of people across the globe. And the minute that civil society and literally people like you and I start to move, governments start to listen. And the fact that Antonio Guterres, who's the UN Secretary General, basically dedicated a day where he said governments and head of states must come this time around with clear actions, sizable actions that their countries are willing to do, basically to move to a more sustainable future. And knowing just how the youth basically influence that process, even them being present at the United Nations to basically submit their complaints to governments, is signifying of the fact that people are listening, people are seeing. It might not be at the scale that we want, but something is happening, and it's powerful.
Well, we support you, Bukelwa Nzimande. Keep up the good work. Thanks for talking to us.